Official field reports. Unedited camera footage. Pure justice. You are watching Bodycam incident reports.
Officer, get off the boat, now!
Hands where I can see them. I'm Port Authority Engineering. I'm doing a structural scan. My ID is right here.
Anyone can buy a vest. Step off or I drag you.
Okay, I'm complying. Please don't touch the scanner.
Move!
I am not
You're
resisting.
assaulting a city engineer.
Officer Thorne, stand down. That's my lead engineer.
Officer Silas Thorne had patrolled the Marina District for 19 years. He was the kind of cop who claimed he could smell trouble, a claim that usually meant he profiled anyone who didn't look like they owned a $1 million vessel. He was 46 years old, a man who believed the badge gave him the right to be judge, jury, and gatekeeper of the city's waterfront. One humid Tuesday evening, amidst the clinking of sailboat masts and the cry of seagulls, Thorne spotted a young black man standing on the stern of a docked commercial trawler holding what looked like a high-tech tablet and a laser device. He didn't see a professional at work. He decided, without radioing dispatch, without checking the vessel's logs, and without a shred of probable cause, that he was looking at a thief casing the marina for high-end electronics. The man he was screaming at was Julian Mercer. At 27 years old, Mercer was a prodigy, a graduate of MIT with a master's in civil engineering, and currently the youngest lead structural engineer in the history of the city Port Authority. He was the man responsible for ensuring the very docks Officer Thorne was standing on didn't collapse into the ocean. What Thorne did next, ignoring Mercer's high-clearance identification, mocking his explanation, and dragging him off the boat in front of a crowd of tourists and boat owners, would cost the city $5.2 million and expose a rot so deep within the harbor precinct that it would trigger a federal investigation. It proved that to a man blinded by prejudice, even the architect of the ground beneath his feet is seen as a trespasser. Before we dive into the details of this infuriating case, where are you watching from? If you believe that authority without accountability is tyranny, please hit that subscribe button. We are dedicated to exposing the stories that the system tries to bury, and your support helps us keep the lights on. The Bayside Marina is the crown jewel of the city's waterfront. It is a sprawling labyrinth of floating concrete docks, mahogany-decked yachts, and commercial fishing zones. It smells of diesel fuel, salt spray, and money. It is a place where the wealthy park their toys and the working class come to clean them. It is a world of stark contrasts, divided by velvet ropes and security gates. It was 6:45 p.m. The sun was beginning its descent, painting the harbor in shades of bruised purple and burning orange. The air was thick, the kind of humidity that sticks your shirt to your back within seconds. Julian Mercer was tired, but focused. He had been working a 12-hour shift. The city had commissioned an emergency structural review of the commercial sector after a minor piling collapse 2 weeks prior. Mercer wasn't just an engineer, he was the engineer. He had the final sign-off authority on whether the Bayside Marina remained open or was condemned for repairs. Mercer was dressed in work boots, khaki cargo pants, a polo shirt with the Port Authority emblem embroidered on the chest, and a neon yellow safety vest that read, Port Authority Engineering Division, in 2-inch reflective letters across the back. Around his neck hung a heavy-duty lanyard holding his holographic ID card, a TWIC transportation worker identification credential card, and a master key fob that opened every gate in the harbor. He was standing on the Sea Witch, a commercial trawler that had been dry docked for repairs but was now back in the water. The owners had given him express written permission to use the vessel as a vantage point to laser scan the pylons underneath the adjacent luxury pier. Julian Mercer was brilliant. He saw the world in vectors, loads, and stress points. He had grown up in a neighborhood where the police were not seen as protectors, but as an occupying force. He had worked twice as hard to get half as far. He kept his head down, followed every rule, and carried every permit. He knew that a black man in high-security zones had to be beyond reproach. He was meticulous. He was professional. He was authorized. But to Officer Silas Thorne, who was leaning against his patrol SUV, eating a sandwich and watching the docks through polarized aviator sunglasses, Mercer was just a suspect. Silas Thorne had joined the force 20 years ago. He had spent the first year on the streets, but after a series of excessive force complaints involving rough arrests of teenagers, he was transferred to the Harbor Precinct. The department viewed the harbor as a quiet retirement home for problem officers, a place where they could write tickets for expired boat registrations and drunk boating far away from the complexities of street patrol. But Thorne didn't treat it like a quiet beat. He treated the marina like his personal kingdom. In his 19 years at the harbor, Thorne had accumulated 22 complaints. 22. Most officers go their entire careers with one or two. Thorne's file was a testament to unchecked aggression. There was the incident where he detained a Hispanic family for 3 hours because he didn't believe the rental boat belonged to them. There was the time he tackled a deaf fisherman because the man didn't respond to his verbal commands. There was the pattern of stopping black delivery drivers at the marina gates, searching their vehicles without warrants, claiming he smelled marijuana. The pattern was undeniable. Thorne targeted minorities who entered his marina. He operated on a bias that associated wealth and access solely with whiteness. If you were black or brown at the marina, you were either serving food, cleaning a boat, or stealing something. His supervisors knew. The union knew. But Thorne brought in revenue. He wrote more citations than anyone else. And in the insular culture of the Harbor Precinct, proactive policing was code for harassment, and it was celebrated. That Tuesday evening, Thorne finished his sandwich and wiped his hands on his pants. He squinted at the commercial dock. He saw a figure in a vest. He saw expensive equipment. He didn't see a survey laser. He saw a device for cloning key fobs or hacking yacht security systems. He didn't see an engineer. He saw a predator. Thorne started his engine. He didn't call it in. He didn't run a check on ongoing harbor maintenance. He just drove toward the dock, his mind already made up. Do you think police departments should be federally required to audit officers with high complaint numbers? Let us know in the comments below. Julian Mercer heard the heavy boots on the wooden dock before he saw the officer. The wood reverberated differently when someone was walking with purpose versus the casual stroll of a tourist. He adjusted the tripod of his LiDAR scanner. The device cost $45,000. It was delicate. He was in the middle of a critical scan sequence. If he moved it now, he'd lose 2 hours of data. Hey, you. Julian turned. He saw the uniform, the hand resting on the taser, the aggressive stance. He felt that familiar knot in his stomach, the one every black man in America knows. The sudden shift from citizen to target. "Good evening, officer," Julian said, keeping his voice level. He knew the drill. Be polite, be professional, don't make sudden moves. "Get off the boat," Thorne barked, stopping at the edge of the slip. "Officer, I'm in the middle of a structural scan. I can't move the equipment right now." "I didn't ask about your equipment. I said get off the boat. Who are you? What are you doing here?" "My name is Julian Mercer. I'm the lead engineer for the Port Authority. I'm inspecting the piling integrity for Pier 4. Julian gestured slowly to his chest. "My ID is right here." Thorne didn't look at the ID. He looked at Julian's face. He looked at the neatly trimmed beard. He looked at the sneakers. "Port Authority, huh?" Thorne sneered. "You got a permit to be on that vessel that's private property." "I do," Julian said. "It's on the clipboard inside the case. I also have digital copies on my tablet. If you give me a moment to save this scan, I can show you everything." "Step off the boat, now." "Officer, if I move..." "I'm not playing games with you, kid. You're trespassing. I've seen guys like you down here before scouting boats looking for open hatches." "Guys like me," Julian stiffened. The insult was thinly veiled. "Sir, I am a city employee. I am doing my job. Look at the vest. Anyone can buy a vest at a hardware store." Thorne snapped. He stepped onto the gangplank. The boat rocked slightly. "You got 5 seconds to get on the dock before I drag you off." This is the moment where logic dies and ego takes over. Thorne had committed. He had decided this man was a criminal. If he looked at the credentials now, if he admitted he was wrong, he would lose face. And to a man like Silas Thorne, losing face to a young black man was worse than death. Julian realized that reason was not going to work. He raised his hands, palms open. Okay, officer, I'm complying. I'm stepping off the boat. Please be careful with the scanner. It's government property." Julian stepped carefully over the gunwale and onto the dock. Thorne immediately closed the distance, grabbing Julian by the arm and spinning him around. "Whoa, what are you doing?" Julian shouted, stumbling. "I'm complying." "You're resisting," Thorne yelled a lie for the benefit of the gathering crowd. "Spread your legs. Hands on the railing." "Officer, this is harassment. I have identified myself. My credentials are around my neck." "Shut up." Thorne kicked Julian's ankles apart. He jammed his forearm into Julian's back, pinning him against the metal railing of the dock. The laser scanner on the boat beeped, signaling a completed scan, but Julian couldn't reach it. "You're hurting me," Julian gritted out. "I am a structural engineer. You are assaulting a city official." "You're a trespasser with a fake ID." Thorne hissed in his ear. "I know a hustle when I see one. You think putting on a costume fools me?" Thorne reached for his handcuffs. "Call it in," Julian yelled to the onlookers. A small crowd had gathered near the yacht club entrance. A couple in polo shirts, a family eating ice cream, a deckhand washing a boat. "Someone record this? My name is Julian Mercer. I work for the city." "Stop shouting." Thorne yanked Julian's arms behind his back, twisting the shoulder socket painfully. The handcuffs clicked. The sound was distinct, mechanical, and final. Thorne spun Julian around. "You're under arrest for trespassing, disorderly conduct, and possession of burglary tools." "Burglary tools?" Julian stared at him, eyes wide with disbelief. "That is a LiDAR scanner. It's for measuring concrete density. It costs more than your patrol car." "Yeah, tell it to the judge." Thorne shoved him forward. "Walk." "My equipment," Julian protested, struggling against the cuffs. "You can't leave it there. If it gets stolen or damaged, the city will hold you liable." "I don't care about your toy. Move." They began the long walk down the pier. Julian, humiliated head high, trying to maintain his dignity while being frog-marched by a man who refused to see him. Thorne, red-faced, triumphant, believing he had just caught a master thief. Should officers be personally liable for damages when they arrest the wrong person? This equipment was worth $45,000. Who pays for that? Drop your thoughts below. As they reached the end of the pier near the marina office, a security guard named Frank stepped out. Frank knew Julian. Frank had opened the gate for Julian 3 hours ago. "Whoa, Silas, what are you doing?" Frank jogged over, looking panicked. "Caught this guy casing the trawlers," Thorne said, puffing his chest. "Found him with electronic hacking gear." "Hacking gear?" Frank looked at Julian, then back at Thorne. "Silas, that's Mr. Mercer. He's the engineer. He's inspecting the pylons. I let him in." Thorne paused. For a split second, the reality of the situation flickered in his eyes. But he pushed it away. "He's got a vest, Frank. Probably fooled you too. Did you check his ID against the database? Or did you just wave him through?" "He has a master key fob. Silas only City Hall issues those," Frank shouted. "You need to uncuff him, right now." "I'm taking him in for verification." Thorne doubled down. "If he's legit, he can explain it at the station. Right now he's a suspect who refused to comply." "I did not refuse," Julian yelled. "I begged you to look at my ID. Stop resisting." Thorne shoved Julian toward the patrol car. Just then a voice cut through the air like a whip. "Officer Thorne, stand down." A white sedan with municipal plates screeched to a halt next to Thorne's SUV. A woman stepped out. She was wearing a hard hat and a blazer. It was Evelyn Vance, the director of the Port Authority. She had been at a dinner meeting at the Yacht Club restaurant and had seen the commotion from the balcony. She didn't run, she stormed. Her heels clicked furiously on the pavement. "Director Vance," Thorne said, his confidence wavering slightly. He knew who she was. She was the woman who signed the checks for the police detail at the harbor. "Get your hands off my lead engineer," Vance said, her voice trembling with cold rage. "Ma'am, this individual was found trespassing on..." "This individual is Julian Mercer," Vance interrupted, stepping into Thorne's personal space. "He is the reason this marina hasn't been condemned. I signed his work order this morning. Why is he in handcuffs?" "He refused to identify himself," Thorne lied. "That is a lie," Julian shouted. "My ID is around my neck. He refused to look at it." Vance looked at the lanyard dangling from Julian's neck. She looked at Thorne. "Uncuff him, now." "I have to follow procedure, ma'am. He's already under arrest. I have to take him to the station to process." "If you put him in that car," Vance said, her voice dropping to a deadly whisper. I will personally ensure you are not just fired. I will ensure you are prosecuted for kidnapping. Do you understand me? Uncuff him. Thorne looked around. Frank, the security guard, was shaking his head. The crowd was filming. Director Vance was staring daggers at him. The protective bubble of his authority was popping. He fished the keys from his belt. He uncuffed Julian. Julian rubbed his wrists. The skin was broken. A trickle of blood ran down his hand. He took a deep breath, composing himself. He didn't scream, he didn't attack. He adjusted his vest. Officer Thorne. Julian said, his voice surprisingly calm, carrying the weight of absolute certainty. You have violated my civil rights. You have ignored exculpatory evidence. You have assaulted a municipal officer. I am going to walk back to that boat, retrieve my equipment, and then I am going to call my lawyer. And you are going to wait right here for your supervisor. You don't give me orders, Thorne muttered, but he stepped back. He looked small now. I'm not giving orders, Julian said, turning his back on the officer. I'm giving you a courtesy warning. The video hit the internet before Julian even left the marina. Title: Racist Cop Arrests City Engineer for Doing His Job. Views 1.2 million in 4 hours. Ain't 2 million. The footage was damning. It showed Thorne refusing to look at the ID. It showed him kicking Julian's legs. It showed Director Vance intervening. It showed the stark difference between a calm, professional black man and an out-of-control white officer. The public reaction was nuclear. The hashtag engineering, while black trended globally. Other engineers, scientists, and professionals posted photos of themselves in their work vests with the caption, "Do I look like a suspect?" But the legal battle was just beginning. Julian Mercer didn't just want an apology. He wanted justice. He hired a civil rights firm known for taking on police unions. They filed a federal lawsuit against Officer Silas Thorne, the Harbor Precinct, and the city. The complaint was brutal in its detail. Count 1, false arrest. Count 2, excessive force. Count 3, violation of the Fourth Amendment, unreasonable search and seizure. Count 4, violation of the 14th Amendment, equal protection, racial profiling. Count 5, malicious prosecution. The discovery phase of the trial unearthed the skeletons in Thorne's closet. The plaintiff's attorneys subpoenaed his entire disciplinary record. They found the 22 previous complaints. They found emails from Thorne to other officers using racial slurs to describe dock workers. They found a text message sent 10 minutes after the arrest to his union rep. Got a problem at the docks. Some affirmative action hire with a fake badge. Need cover. That text message was the nail in the coffin. It proved malice. It proved that Thorne didn't make a mistake. He acted on prejudice. The city attorney took one look at the evidence and recommended an immediate settlement. They knew a jury would destroy them. They knew that if this went to trial, the entire corrupt culture of the Harbor Precinct would be put on display. But Julian refused the first offer, and the second. It's not about the money, Julian told his lawyers. It's about Thorne. He cannot be a police officer anymore. That is my condition. The police union fought back. They argued for qualified immunity. They argued that Thorne made a reasonable mistake of fact. They tried to smear Julian, digging into his past, trying to find a parking ticket, a bad grade, anything to discredit him. They found nothing. Julian Mercer was exactly who he said he was, a brilliant law-abiding citizen who had dedicated his life to public safety. 6 months later, the city caved. The settlement was historic $5.2 million, but the non-monetary terms were what made headlines. Termination officer Silas Thorne was fired with cause. Decertification. The city petitioned the state licensing board to revoke Thorne's peace officer certification, ensuring he could never wear a badge in that state again. Policy change. The Mercer Protocol was implemented. It mandated that officers must verify credentials through dispatch before initiating an arrest of anyone claiming to be a municipal, state, or federal employee, provided there is no immediate threat to life. Audit and independent commission was established to review every arrest made by the Harbor Precinct in the last 10 years. The city council hearing where the settlement was ratified was packed. Reporters, activists, and citizens filled the room. Julian Mercer stood at the podium. He wasn't wearing his safety vest. He was wearing a suit. He looked every bit the successful engineer he was. He adjusted the microphone. The room went silent. "Council members," Julian began, his voice echoing in the chamber. "I have spent my life studying foundations. My job is to understand how much weight a structure can hold before it cracks. I look for hidden weaknesses. I look for the rot that hides behind a fresh coat of paint." He paused, making eye contact with the chief of police sitting in the front row. "On that Tuesday evening, Officer Thorne didn't see an engineer. He didn't see a master's degree from MIT. He didn't see the city seal on my chest. He saw a black man in a place he believed black men didn't belong, and because of that belief, he was willing to throw away the Constitution." Julian leaned forward. "We talk about bad apples. But a bad apple is an anomaly. Silas Thorne had 22 complaints. He was not an anomaly. He was a product. He was a product of a system that decided his comfort was more important than my rights, a system that protected his bias instead of protecting my body. I was lucky," Julian continued. "I had a director who came out of a restaurant to save me. I had a security guard who spoke up. I had a camera crew of tourists. But what about the man who is cleaning the boat alone at night? What about the teenager fishing off the pier who saves them when Officer Thorne decides they don't belong? The $5.2 million you are paying me is not justice. It is a penalty tax for your negligence. Justice would be a city where I don't need a white woman to validate my existence to a police officer. Justice would be a city where my badge is treated with the same respect as his. I built the pier that Officer Thorne arrested me on," Julian said, his voice thickening with emotion. "I calculated the load-bearing capacity of every beam. I ensured it was safe for him to walk on. And in return, he tried to break me. Until you understand that irony, until you understand that we are the architects of this city, not just its suspects, this money means nothing." He walked away from the podium to a standing ovation. Silas Thorne didn't attend the hearing. He was at home, unemployed, facing a pending criminal investigation for civil rights violations. His defense was that he was just doing his job. He never understood that his version of the job was the problem. He maintained to the end that if Julian had just been more humble, none of this would have happened. The Mercer Protocol is now standard procedure in the city. The Harbor Precinct was reorganized with 40% of its staff transferred or retired early. The independent audit found that the precinct had disproportionately targeted minorities for low-level citations for a decade. Hundreds of convictions were overturned. But the psychological scar remains. Julian Mercer still works for the Port Authority. He still inspects the docks. But now he never works alone. He never works without a body camera of his own, and every time he hears heavy boots on the wood decking, he flinches. This story forces us to ask a difficult question. Why is innocence not enough? Julian did everything right. He was polite, he was credentialed, he was authorized, and yet he was in handcuffs within 3 minutes. It teaches us a valuable, painful lesson about the nature of prejudice. Prejudice is not just hatred. It is a refusal to see reality. It is a filter that distorts the world. To a racist mind, a laser scanner looks like a burglary tool. A legitimate ID looks like a fake. A professional looks like a criminal. Abuse of power happens when we allow that filter to become policy. When we allow officers to trust their instincts more than the evidence in front of their eyes, we create a police state for the marginalized. We cannot just fire the Silas Thornes of the world. We have to dismantle the machinery that protected him for 19 years. We have to question why 22 complaints were ignored. We have to demand that the people enforcing the law are capable of seeing the humanity in the people they police. Because next time there might not be a Director Vance to intervene. Next time there might not be a camera. Next time the engineer might not make it home. If this story made you think, if it made you angry, share it. Share it so that we don't forget. Share it so that the next time someone says, just comply and you'll be fine, you can tell them about Julian Mercer. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that challenge the narrative. We'll see you in the next video. Stay safe and keep your cameras ready.
Case analysis finalized. To stay updated with transparent operations, please hit like and subscribe. Thank you for choosing Bodycam Incident Reports.